Hello, welcome to another episode of Tigers, blah, 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 with me, Luke Flanagan, and my host is Rich Walker. He's here.
I am here.
Now then.
How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Good. Looking forward to another weekend of football. So, few mentions before we get started, as usual. So, massive thanks to... firstly, we'll do Fan Hub Football, because we're part of them. So, Fan Hub Football are the... hashtag fans first movement, so check them out there in our bio. And then secondly, big thanks to Danny Johnson and Hull City Ladies. Their season has started. They got a 1-1 draw, which was very respectable, against Middlesbrough Ladies last week, and they are at home this week.
They're at home. They're definitely at home.
Definitely at home. We'd looked at the wrong one. They are at home. It's at Hayworth Park. It is 2 p.m. kickoff. They are allowed 300 spectators.
Sunday
afternoon. So if you do want to see a Hull City team that are allowed to have supporters after last week's debacle, then you can go and watch the ladies team. Will be a big challenge for them, I think, with Sunderland, but they are playing decent. The form's decent as City for pre-season and stuff. One thing I would say that I've just seen on the social media, obviously check out Hull City Ladies' social media if you want any more information, but you can buy your ticket pre-game if you wanted to, but you must wear face masks unless exempt whilst you're watching. That is something that I've noticed they've put up there. So if you are interested in going down to City Ladies, remember your mask. And finally, big thanks to all our Patreons. So we've got Aaron Bell, Mike Hassan, PB Clinical Hypnotherapy, Alex O'Neill, Rich Fleming, Adam Brown, and Ewan Jones. And then Mike Hassan is the winner of the mug this week. So any messages and stuff, let me know where you want it sending, and we'll get to that. So obviously, welcome to a new episode, and we are returning to our old format, aren't we, Rich, this week?
Yes.
So we're doing the good, the bad, and the number. Because we are covering 2 games, so I thought it'd be a good way to go back to our original set out. So we're going to start with the good.
It just allows us to look at things in kind of the bigger picture sort of sense, doesn't it? Rather than kind of going through, and then this happened in the game.
Yeah.
We don't want to be in that linear fashion, especially a week after the fact.
Yeah, of course, because obviously it is nearly a week since the Crewe game, and lots happened between that. So there's other things we can...
It feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they say a week's a long time in football. It's definitely felt like that.
Definitely has. But obviously, we like to be positive. We like to start with the good things. And I will hand over to my good friend Rich, who will tell us about his good thing this week.
Right, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, this might surprise a few people, given, I think it probably surprised you, I don't know, but I mean, given the way that we spoke about things for quite a lot at the end of last season, and that we've been less than glowing about him, my good thing for this week is Grant McCann.
I did see that on the list when you'd sent it over pre-recording, and actually I didn't really have any negative thoughts towards that. I thought it was fair enough.
You didn't think, what, are you fucking joking?
No, I didn't think that. I would have done last year. But yeah, no, I'd like to hear your reasoning, but I understand personally why you would have gone for that. But floor's yours.
Okay. Well, it rests on one thing. Anybody who kind of watched the Crewe game, at least for the first hour, I think would have seen like kind of a very stodgy game of football. We were having a hard time getting going, and it looked particularly towards the end of the first half like Crewe were coming on the stronger of the two sides.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. They did. They looked like scoring a couple of times, and we didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Ingram had to make a smart save from that long punt that Device made a hash of in front of him, and then they had that ball flashed across the face of his goal that their striker kind of...
Oh yeah, that was a close one, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very Gaza Euro 96, wasn't it?
That was what popped into my head and all, funnily enough.
Yeah, so... And that pattern didn't really change for the first 15 minutes of the second half. All right, we sort of were able to nullify their threat a little bit. They weren't looking quite as dangerous, but it still needed something. We still needed to do something, I think, to really take the game by the scruff of the neck. There'd been a lot of talk in the build up to it about, it being our house. It was our home game. We wanted to make a fortress of it.
I did like that.
Well, I did, but we'd heard a lot of chat from players and coaching staff at the end of last season that was just that. It was just talk. So it would have been an easy thing to dismiss as just talk had we not been able to,
grind the result out basically.
Yeah, exactly. And to that end, that's why I was picking McCann as my positive, because he wasn't watching the game and thinking, well, I'll take the point and we'll move on from here. He actually did something that we didn't see too frequently out of him last season, and that was to change the game with his substitutions.
Well, make effective substitutions that did change the game effectively is what he did, because people were saying, right, this needs changing. And I think you're right, last year, I think he would have just brought on a like for like. If Tom Eaves was available, he'd have swapped with McGuinness, that sort of thing. But he actually he switched people for positions, brought on Mayer. He looked dangerous. Wilkes is better through the middle. Bob's your uncle, Fan is your aunt. 1-0 Hull City.
Yeah. Well, if only it had been that simple. But that was what pleased me about him, was that he'd identified where, that something needed to change. And Wilkes had been absolutely electric against Leeds through the middle.
He had,
So why not look at him through there again? And it wasn't an instant thing, but it was, very noticeable. The way we changed
the play was obviously like we looked more dangerous down the flanks then, didn't we? Because Scott on one side and Mayer on the other. They didn't really know how to handle them, did they?
For all that we like Lewis Potter,
he wasn't
game. Really in the game.
But he's going to have that as well. Like,
of course he is. That's what you get with young players. The development isn't a straight line.
I mean, what I will say added to that was Crewe did their own work.
Yeah.
And they nullified the threat that we probably thought, he's going to start with probably Lewis Potter out wide, and he would start with McGuinness, and he did, didn't he? It did. It obviously, it's that 60 minutes of that, and it was like, right, we need something different. And to be fair to him, he changed it. So
yeah, and I know there were a lot of people during the Crewe game and after the Crewe game, and especially after the West Ham game, slagging Josh McGuinness. And all right, fair enough. If you don't like him, I'm not going to convince you of his merits at this point. But he was worth his start.
Yeah,
definitely in the Crewe game, he was worth his start because, all right, Wilkes had done it away to Leeds, but he's a very different proposition playing two inexperienced centre backs for Leeds.
Oh, he did run them ragged, but you're right, they were young lads.
Yeah, and then to come up against a side like Crewe who've been promoted and will be far more experienced than those boys at Leeds were, it's a much different proposition. I thought he was value for his start. Didn't really do a lot with it, the chance that he was presented, but then he didn't get too much his way.
No.
But then to change it, that was the key thing for me. And Wilkes has got the scoring touch at the minute.
He has. I mean, it'd be no surprise to you that my positive is Malik Wilkes. But
easy one. Yeah,
easy one there, I think. But obviously, putting him through the middle, and it's probably something I'll allude to later on as well. We hadn't really seen Wilkes through the middle, had we? I mean, What we did say when we spoke to Baz last week, the interchangeability, if that's a word, between
I think it is, yeah,
between Scott, McGuinness, Wilkes, Mayer, whoever was going to come in, switching around of that front three was crucial because it might be that the defender has somebody's number, and if you switch wings, then it might give him a more torrid time. And that was certainly something that obviously McCann must have on his radar because he then switched Wilkes and played him through the middle against Leeds.
Well, I mean, if you listen to what he's had to say after every one of the forward signings that we've made this summer, he's mentioned that they can play in a number of different positions.
Yeah, well, he likes diverse, changeable strikers. Doesn't he? He doesn't just want an out number 9, or he wants somebody who could play wide, who could play off somebody else, who could play to the left. He wants people who can be all round and fit in wherever there's room, I think.
And you definitely feel like we've got that, other than McGuinness and Eves, who are very much number nines. Everybody else,
Yeah.
you could say, well, he can play there and he can play there. Lewis Potter can play through the middle. Wilkes can.
Yeah.
We've heard that Meyer can play number 10.
I mean, he's looked good as well as Meyer in the flashes that I've seen him, but
he wasn't in the game.
He wasn't in the game against West Ham.
No,
but then again,
very, very few of them were.
Wilkes took his goal well to show the desire to get past that defender, and then I think it was poor goalkeeping, in fairness. But I mean, you still got to score him, haven't you? So it gave. I mean, I think that West Ham game is a little bit of it was a free pass for us anyway, because of all the things that overshadow it anyway, in my opinion. With everything happening, I know people on Twitter were saying all sorts of things like, oh, well, if Hull were winning, you wouldn't be saying that. Well, actually, it doesn't matter who was winning in the end. It doesn't matter that we got beat 5-1. Wouldn't have mattered if we'd have gone through on penalties if that had happened. It's the fact that the players had tested positive, and then everything that happened around that was just that much of a farce. And I'm sure we'll get to that later on. But I did think Wilkes was one of the positives that I took out of that game, because he did show the desire to keep going. Even when we were 3-0 down, he was still, making the runs, and it paid off for him to get that goal. Maybe on another night, we may have pulled it back to 3-2 and it may have been slightly different. But I'm a big fan of him through the middle. And I do think that's going to be more of a tactical switch that McCann makes when it's not working, because I still think he prefers Eves and McGuinness up top, because that's his way of playing, in my opinion. I don't know what you think of that. He started to have that little plan B where he does change it, and obviously it worked against Crewe, didn't it? Because Wilkes went through the middle, and his movement was excellent to get onto the end of that cross. The cross from Meyer was great.
Yeah.
So it was pleasing to see that, because that's the sort of thing we missed last season, wasn't it? Let's
just that ability to alter your game plan.
It only slightly as well. Not changing it so it's a back three with a middle five and all of that rubbish. It's just tweaks, which we criticised him for last year. Against Birmingham was one of the main ones, where we were 2-0 up at half-time and cruising. They made a tweak and we couldn't deal with it. And he couldn't tweak it back to then nullify their threat. We ended up drawing 3-3, didn't we? And it was a right joke of a result, because we should have won that by a lot. But he's obviously learning from those mistakes that he made last season.
You'd hope so. He'd have a lot of subject material to draw on if he wanted to learn, wouldn't he?
Absolutely. But I think both, obviously we talked about both our positives, but I think, you were right to single out McCann for praise, because we were quick to slag him last year.
Well, that's the thing. If you're gonna have a pop at him, when he does get it right, you can't be shy about saying that it was a positive. And it has been a good start to the season. We've started well, and up until Wednesday night, when maybe for a few people the bubble might have burst a little bit.
There's no coronavirus pun or anything.
No, it wasn't intentional. I wish it had been.
West Ham bubble as well.
Yeah, oh God,
double pun.
It works on so many layers. I wish I'd done that intentionally. That would have been
brilliant.
More intelligent than I
give yourself credit for.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's been a great start to the season in the league, hasn't it?
It has. And what I was going to say is, and just because it has been a great start doesn't necessarily mean that opinions of Grant McCann have altered.
No.
We feel any differently about him in his role as Hull City manager and about what happened last season. But as long as he is the manager, you have to give him the chance to be able to redeem himself.
There is only so much you can kind of dwell on last season. And if he is the manager, you've got to get behind him, haven't you? Even if you're not the biggest fan of him, which I know a lot of City fans still aren't. But he's doing the right things to try and win some trust back, in my opinion.
So far, so good. I saw somebody today online have made an excellent analogy. It's like everything, all the ingredients that we're adding into the pot at the moment seems to be the right ones, and Grant McCann's kind of got it bubbling in the right way.
Yeah, that's a nice analogy.
But the trouble is that you never know when the owners are going to come along and just tip the pot over.
Either that or just pour arsenic in it.
Yeah.
he had with a big grin on his face, like. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure he'd do that.
No, no.
I don't think he's that bad.
Well, all right then. He'd put some like horrific spice in there that you only need a pinch of, and he'd just pour it all in and just grin and walk off.
He might do a Keenan and Kel and put the screw in the tune.
Yeah, it's a cracking reference. So yeah, well, those are our positives: Grant McCann and Malik Wilkes. So we start off on a good.
Yeah, and while we're talking
subject.
positives, just very briefly, I think with regards to the Crewe game, for a lot of people, I think they would have been disappointed by the way that the game went because it was such hard work for us, particularly after the Gillingham game when we all thought like the good ship HMS Piss the League was setting sail.
And do you know what? It kind of annoys me that, but I still really laugh when I see it. I
do like it. It's tongue in cheek. It has to be, doesn't it?
I see all them big cruise liners, and there's just Hull City badge on it, and it says HMS Piss the League on the side. I still laugh at that. But I love that it took one game where we could have battered Gillingham 4-0, and everyone's like all aboard HMS Piss the League. It does make me laugh. It's so City. It's so City.
Well, But I mean, a lot of people would have seen that standard against Gillingham and thought,
if these are supposed to be good, then we should be okay.
The game against Crewe was a really good reminder that there are decent outfits at this level.
And to be fair, they'll be all right this season. They've come up from League Two, and they'll be all right. They'll get points. They'll get wins here and there because they're difficult to break down, and that's
maybe just like a bit of cutting edge.
That's it. They probably just need a striker, and they'd be all right. In fairness, but I think away from home, that's how they're going to set up. In it, it's maybe at home when they try and play maybe a little bit more through the thirds that they might get carved open by teams.
Yeah, I was very impressed with them. I mean, they're difficult to break down, and they look dangerous from wide positions.
They also definitely weren't just shutting up shop and trying to get the point.
Not at all. They were trying to win the game.
They were. So it's fair play because I prefer it when teams do that. It's more of particularly second half was a good watch in my opinion. I thought first half we were poor, and they looked more likely to score. But again, like you said, as soon as he changed it, it looked like we were in the game more, and it was just that bit of quality from us, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that it was quality from Maya. I mean, what a fantastic cross! It really was good. He couldn't have put that in any better spot for Wilkes, and the way that Wilkes stooped on to finish it was, I really did enjoy that goal. It was a moment of quality that we haven't seen.
Well, Tom Eaves must be watching that and going, "God, we've got a striker who can cross the ball."
Yeah, give me that kind of service.
But that's the service he needs. Look at Lehigh last year against Chef Wednesday when we won at home. It was a great header that, wasn't it? But a great ball in from Lehigh as well. That's the sort of service that he needs, and he never seemed to get last year. He might be back. I don't know this in the squad this week. I'm not sure if it's come too soon for him, but I assume he'd be on the bench. I assume he'd be on the bench and maybe feature the week after. So yeah, I mean the game against Grimsby's off in it, but
yes,
we might talk about that afterwards. So I
think that comes along with my bad.
It does certainly. So if we end this one now and then we go on to the bad. We'll return in a second. Okay, so now we're going to look at the bad, and I shall let my good friend go first. His right honourable gentleman, Richard Walker.
I don't know if I can lay claim to either of those things.
I think it sounds quite good.
Yeah, all right then. Okay.
Made you chuckle anyway. I just like it. Go on.
Do you know, I've noticed from, just as a quick aside, I've noticed from like listening back to these recordings that I kind of laugh a little bit like Dr. Hibbert.
Yeah, but do you know what? I haven't even. Yeah. Oh, mercy. Oh, dear God, no.
I suppose that's better than laughing like Peter Griffin, like.
Yeah. I don't know who my laugh's like. I'm sure people will tell me as soon as the episode's posted. But anyway, you're. It's ironic that we are, laughing when we're talking about bad things.
Yeah, because I mean, my bad thing really does come out of a laughable situation. So my bad thing is the EFL.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, you can probably guess why.
Yeah.
I just thought it was Wednesday night, wasn't it? The West Ham game.
It was.
Was it Wednesday? Yeah. But I just thought that the handling of West Ham's positive coronavirus test announcement and everything around it, the fact that the game went ahead, the fact that West Ham were allowed to return positive results so close to kick-off, with players already in squads and having had managers and players having had contact with people who had tested positive, and then to not have, it didn't sound like a very robust protocol was in place to be able to then deal with that situation. The fact that the club's staff and players and presumably match officials were then brought together to decide whether or not they were comfortable with the game going ahead, I thought was a ridiculous situation.
Everyone get in. Don't matter about your 2 meters, by the way.
Well, I mean, it was probably everything was probably done back, socially distanced and what have you. But I just thought it was, considering it was really an eminently foreseeable situation, to not have a system in place by which you would deal with those things. To me, it just seemed amateur. I mean, you're talking about the body that runs 3 of the 4 top football leagues in England, and they had neglected to put something in place for a situation like this.
Well, I thought...
everything about this is unprecedented, but I mean, if you were doing a very basic risk assessment, that would be something that you would come up with as a possible scenario, wouldn't it? And think, what if this happens? How are we going to deal with it? And the fact that there wasn't something prescribed for either West Ham, because they're blameless in this as well, let's not forget, whether or not their tests were done at a proper time or whenever they got the results, they were coming into this fresh as well. It was a new situation for them.
Yeah.
But it was left to them and City and presumably match officials to resolve that situation and find a workaround. I think he's complete... flabbergasting, I suppose. It was really, really shocking that they put everyone in the stadium that night in that position.
It's one thing I kind of looked at. I'm sure you looked at it too, but obviously it was our Phil Buckingham at Hull Live, and now he's gone to the Athletic, which was going to work for both parties massively, I think. So we're actually going to have somebody with a City focus from time to time that kind of brings these things to the fore in a well respected publication for sport. But it was interesting. I read the first paragraph of one of Phil Buckingham's first pieces that he wrote with Roche Thomas for The Athletic, and it says the following, which I'm sure you've read it, but it's worth going through anyway for people who haven't. Just an hour before lining up against West Ham United, Hull City's coaching team was shocked to discover David Moyes, Issa Diop and Josh Cullen had all tested positive for COVID-19, but learned shortly after they would be the team that forfeited the Carabao Cup tie if they opposed the game going ahead. Now, that is an absolute disgrace. And that isn't West Ham. That's the EFL rule, no doubt. If they opposed it, they were told, right, you best get on with it or you're going to lose anyway. So they're in an absolutely impossible position. So what's the difference, can I ask, between that and then the Leyton Orient Spurs game that didn't go ahead?
Well, exactly, and that's what I was going to come on to. It's all part of the same situation. Leyton Orient had positive tests at, around their camp and the stadium, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is why their game didn't go ahead.
It was more than 3. positive test, wasn't it? Yeah, let's admit, it was.
So that's why their game didn't go ahead. But then they now, because they weren't able to play the game, it's essentially like as if they'd had an injury crisis, and like what Middlesbrough did years ago, where they said, well, we can't turn up for the game, and essentially they're forfeited for not being ready to play the game.
Yeah, well, they'd have ended up playing at under-18s or something, wouldn't they?
But those positive tests are only discovered because they took up Tottenham Hotspur's offer
of the free testing.
Of free testing, which is something that we declined from West Ham United. But a lot of the fallout to West Ham having positive tests was from national journalists wading in and saying, well, I think it's ridiculous that Hull have declined these tests.
Yeah, and I think that was the sort of, look over there.
Yeah, and West Ham didn't exactly help that.
No, they didn't.
With their Tory porn merchants chairman's statement. To point the finger at us, because it was like, we've done these coronavirus tests. We've got 3 positives. Our testers only gave us the results an hour and 20 minutes before the kick-off, when everybody was in the stadium. Everybody's travelled to the ground together. But we've only got these results an hour and 20 minutes late. But, look, Hull City declined our free test.
It very much did feel like...
Reckless endangerment of our playing squad. And it's like, hang on a minute.
Who's the bad guy here?
Yeah, and it did feel like we were being painted
scapegoated now massively.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But where all that is leading to is, where is the incentive in a situation like this now for a club in the EFL for whom testing is not mandatory on a regular basis like it is in the Premier League?
No,
and that's mandated by the EFL, because Leyton Orient now have forfeited that game. Tottenham Hotspur get a bye.
That's it. They go through, don't they?
Because Leyton Orient, in some kind of, I suppose it is an acknowledgement of Tottenham's position and saying, yeah, okay, thank you, we'll take you up on these tests. It's not mandatory for us, but we'll do it out of respect for you. It's cost them.
It has, yeah.
So where is the incentive now for clubs to take up testing? It's not there.
So if we'd have had the free testing and we'd have done that, and then say some of our players test positive, even if they're asymptomatic or whatever, and then it wouldn't matter if West Ham had the 3 tests, would it? Because Hull City had it. We'd be the one that's just gets booted out, and they'd go to the next round anyway. That's how it seems from that kind of scenario.
Presumably. And then, how does that affect the Northampton players? All right, doctors on Wednesday night have looked at it and said the chances of transmission are very low because it's outdoors and you're not standing in close proximity to somebody for 15 minutes or whatever it is. And
presumably none of the other players were positive, because the ones that played will have got the all clear. So you wouldn't worry about that, but you don't know.
Because of incubation times.
That's it. That's the other thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I assume we would have heard about it by now, because they've had other tests performed and results returned since, I believe. So I assume we would have heard about it by now, were anybody positive. But the point is, we didn't know that at the time, and we were going into that without the benefit of hindsight to inform that decision. So if you're Northampton Town, you're thinking, where does that leave us? Because we have a club visiting us whose players have potentially been exposed to people carrying the virus. So there's that grey area, do they then insist on us requiring tests? Still not a requirement.
Not under the AFL, no. Not under them.
There's nothing been said, well, you've come into contact with people that have been exposed, so we'll test you in the interest of preventing any further outbreaks and cancellation of other games and so on and so forth. But then today, we've also found out that Grimsby Town have got positive cases within their camp.
Again, quite close to home again. So
exactly. And not least because we've got a game, or we're supposed to have a game against them on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So their game on tomorrow, Saturday, has been postponed. Our game on Tuesday night has been cancelled.
It's not till the 6th, though, that game. It was supposed to be the 6th, wasn't it? But it's still cancelled. It is still cancelled.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting my dates mixed up.
It's a week Tuesday, but that's because it's 2 weeks from today. That takes them to the 9th.
But their training ground needs to be closed for 2 weeks. So what happens now? because are they deemed unable to fulfil the fixtures and they forfeit their league fixture tomorrow and the EFL Trophy game against us? Like, what happens now? Where's the precedent?
But it was a youth player that tested positive for COVID.
Was it?
It wasn't a first team squad member. Well, it was Jock Curran. Apparently, he was a youth team player. He's got it
right. All the best to him. Hopefully,
Oh yeah, I hope it's asymptomatic and it's nothing that affects him.
No long-term effects of it.
That's it. Yeah, but
the difficulty now in this situation is, it seems like the EFL are playing catch-up because they've been made to look very poor because they haven't prepared for really what was something easily foreseeable. Very much a possibility before play was resumed. And I appreciate that it's difficult for clubs in League One, League Two, maybe even Championship, given the expense involved, to test regularly in the same manner as the Premier League are.
It comes down to money in the end of the day, but they surely need something a little bit more robust to be closer to where the Premier League is, surely.
Otherwise, with infection numbers going up, this season is going to be ridiculously disrupted.
Otherwise, you're going to have to get to the situation where, like they've got in America with their bubbles, the sporting bubbles, that's the only way you would get security, like 99% security. And you can't do it. It can't do it here. It's just impossible to do.
I know a little bit about it because that's how they finished the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
So, like in the NHL, they had two bubbles in Canada. Started off with 12 teams in each, and they've worked down now to one bubble in Edmonton for the Stanley Cup final. 2 teams left, and they haven't had a positive case so far. And they've been playing for weeks now. But it's at great expense, and there's testing going on every day.
I mean, it's same with MLS. I mean, obviously, I follow MLS quite a lot, and they had a big bubble down in Florida for the MLS's back tournament, and I cannot imagine the expense that must have cost. But the league's got the money. It's not an awful lot. It's not something that we could do. But that is the only way. I think that is the only way that you get proper, no infections within sport, because
but then it's very different in short-term tournament formats than it is in a 46-game season.
The other, I mean, it's just such a minefield, though, isn't it? When the players go home, what do? What if
same as the rest of us? I would hope
that's it. But it's family. Like if a member of your family has it, and then it's just such a ridiculous situation for everybody.
I just thought they were made to look very amateurish.
I'd agree with that. Definitely. It's not the first time the EFL have been made to look inept, I will say that.
Inept and indecisive again when it comes to making a big decision. Sheffield Wednesday last season, Wigan. I don't know what goes on at the top of that organisation, but
I think they just have a Wheel of Fortune board and they spin it, and whatever it lands on, they'll do. But it's weighted in the favour of the bigger clubs.
Well,
I think. But anyway, what are you going to do? That's a good choice from you. I think my negative is actually more close to home in the squad that we will miss tomorrow, which is Richie Smallwood's injury, which I hope is only... Grant McCann seemed to give the impression that he wouldn't be out for too long.
He also seemed to leave it kind of hanging out there that he might be available.
Yeah, I don't think he will be. I don't know if he's just trying to play mind games or something.
Yeah, he doesn't give much away. I expect him to miss it. But
I expect him to miss it too, but I think we will miss him because he's been one of the standouts of the season. He's doing that work.
Would you have played him against West Ham, given his importance to him?
No, I wouldn't. I'd have played... I don't know if I'd have even... Because he brought Honeyman on for Smallwood.
Honeyman.
Honeyman.
As the commentator insisted on calling him.
Honeyman. Because obviously... I
expected the Honey Monster to come out. In the box, Ken.
There's all the belting impressions tonight. I thought Jones did did okay in midfield, and he's going to be a good player for us. I think he's going to be kept, particularly I think in the EFL Trophy when we actually have games. I think he will be a starter in that. I think
he's shown enough to possibly.
I think he's done enough. I think he's done enough to it for a start. But like in midfield, I just think that. Did we really need to play him? It wasn't a massive, it wasn't a game that we say must win. It was kind of a free roll, wasn't it? It was like...
He's one player in the squad where if he's missing, you think, well, we haven't got a replacement. There's no one ready-made to step into that role.
He just does so much, and I don't think he gets the praise that he deserves. It's only 3-4 games in, but the way he just, he's so calm on the ball, and he just... He doesn't do any sort of, Dan Batty always tries the big spray, and he did that well against Crewe at one point as well, and Leeds as well. But Dan Batty tries the 40-yard pass, and when it comes off, it looks spectacular. But Smallwood doesn't do that. That's not his game. He's just into tackles, get them down, crop them, do whatever he needs to do, win the ball back. And I love that kind of midfielder, and it's what we have not had for the last... God knows how many years.
Ian Ashby
was the last one because
Ian Ashby would be the last player in his mould. I'm not saying that the midfield has necessarily required a player like that because there have been times where we've had midfields that didn't need that sort of player to balance them out.
Yeah, I mean Huddleston was much more of a spray the ball and
all
of that when we had them. Livermore was the donkey work. Yeah,
he and Myler could do those kind of things in those teams. It didn't necessarily need someone to kind of be the
Myler
proper spoiler.
He does remind me, like the goon.
Well, goon's maybe a bit harsh, but
you know what I mean, though. If you're using the ice hockey term, it is the proper one that breaks the play up and
just does the horrible stuff for your team and can drive you forward if you're having a poor game and something can just give you something to rally around.
There's just something about him that says leader to me. It feels good that he's the captain. I would trust the team when he's there.
He's he looks assured in himself. He knows what he's about, and he just goes about his job quite quietly.
That's it. But
he's very effective.
He is definitely, and I think he'll be a big miss. I assume somebody like Batty will come in. Don't know what you think.
I was going to say, what would you do to change it or to make up for the fact that he's not there?
It's a tough one. It really is. I don't see any other player like him.
My feeling would be, given that it's away, I would put Alfie Jones in at that position because he played there last season.
He played at Gillingham, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He played in that role for Gillingham, and apparently...
I have heard that there's a Gills fan that I know quite well, and he has said that he absolutely loved Alfie Jones, and he was gutted he went to us. He wanted him back, basically. He said, when you get attachment to a loan player that you get for a season, don't do it because it just feels really sad when they end up going to somebody else.
Like Fraser Campbell.
That's it, yeah. We did get him in the end, what
did it take? 10 years?
10 years, and then he came back. But yeah, I think he'd be a good one in there. I think he'd sit just in front of that defence breaking play up well because he's been assured on the ball. He's got a good ball
physicality
player
as well. He's a big lad.
He is a big lad. I like him actually. From what I've seen so far, I think he'll be a good signing.
He doesn't look immobile either.
No.
You could put other defenders in at the base of your midfield and think, we need to protect him with runners.
I think I would probably. I think you're right. I would probably go Jones there, and I would probably have Honeyman and Doherty in the middle. Because he tends to play the Honeyman kind of in the hole in some respects.
He has been doing.
Yeah, and I don't know what he'll do on the wings. I assume, this is just me assuming, it'll either be one of KLP or Scott on one wing, and I think he'll go Wilkes on the other, and I think McGuinness will start. I think that's what he'll do to start with. Whether he switches it up.
I'd be surprised if he didn't put Wilkes through the middle.
I would hope he would do, but
he's grabbing that shirt. He really is, isn't he? 2 goals, 2 games.
Yeah.
Or 3 goals, 3 games.
He looks so much more comfortable through the middle. Do you remember the other week when we were talking about Wilkes and it was almost like he bundles his way through and he did set piece delivery or his crossing. he's not brilliant, but he finds himself in good situations sometimes and picks the wrong pass. Actually, when he's on the end of a pass, the first thing he's looking to do is shoot at goal, and that's what you want of somebody who goes through the middle, surely. And actually, he gets the ball more because I just think he's a more skillful on the ball than either Eves or McGuinness. Although I'm not bagging McGuinness because I like him as a striker. I think he does a lot of work that people don't give him credit for. But I would still play Wilkes over him through the middle.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's the wild card as well with the new loan signing of Hakeeb Adelakun.
Yeah,
which I'm sure we'll learn to pronounce eventually.
It might be right, it might be wrong. But
it might be right. I could have just made myself look right.
That's it. Because I know that they on the Hull City official Twitter, they just put "Hey Hakeeb" on the signing, so they didn't want to. But we've been after him for a while, it seems. And
we have, yeah. Apparently, he's gone back like 3 years when Nigel Atkins was here.
Well, I mean, you are right about the wild card. I think he'll be on the bench if he's involved.
I think he will be. I think his signing probably came a little bit too late in the week for him to be considered for a start.
Yeah.
But Rotherham's managers gave him a very good review. His Camel Gilas special highlight reel is very impressive.
Camel Gilas special highlight reel. Oh no, he's got one more game, and then we'd have to pay Celta Vigo loads of money. Let's just bang him on the bench and never bring him on.
Yeah, well, I think there was another reason why he never came on.
Because he wasn't no good.
Yeah, exactly.
Very possibly. Very possibly. Still have that goal against Bolton, though, won't we?
Yeah, he did. God, the great white hope of the Gilas and Altidore partnership.
Oh, God. Yeah, that mustard, I think, was it like 3 goals in 40 games or something ridiculous like that?
As many as that, really?
Yeah, well, I think he scored a couple, but I know Altidore only scored once for us.
Yeah.
Against Man City, I think it was.
I know he scored in the cup.
Was it Middlesbrough?
He scored in a cup game.
He scored from outside the area, and it kind of dribbled into the far corner. I remember seeing the relief on his face when it crossed the line.
Poor lad, 19 and all that weight placed on him.
Poor bugger. But anyway,
we digress.
We digress as usual. But yeah, I mean, I think he will be involved. I think he'll be on the bench, but I like the look of Maya as well, I will say.
We've got great options out there now.
We have.
As we've already said, all across the front lines, there's great options. The thing that's interested me about this is Northampton, newly promoted.
That's the second time in 2 weeks we've got newly promoted sides, and they're a bit of an unknown quantity, aren't they?
They are. I think in usual circumstances, you're looking at newly promoted sides and thinking, well, we want to avoid them early on because they'll be coming up with that positivity and the belief. I know that McCann's highlighted that in his pre-match talk about the belief and the togetherness that they'll have, but they've only played a couple of competitive games or competitive league games now in 6-7 months.
That's it. We at least we did finish our season. They didn't have that luxury, even if it wasn't an absolute bloody disaster.
Boy, did we finish it.
Hull City of 95-96 season. Us, hold our beer.
Yeah. How much that counts. But so there's that they've got going for them. But they've also made a very good start to the season. 4 points from the first 2 games is a very respectable start.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I've noticed about them is that they've got 11 first-teamers either out or doubtful for the game tomorrow. And in a squad at this level, 11 is a lot.
That's crippled, isn't it? I mean, that's a lot of under-23s or reserve players, fringe players coming in.
Yeah, so looking at their Northampton Chronicle and Echo match preview, they've got outs and doubts. Fraser Horsfall, Luka Racic, Nicky Adams, Harry Smith, Benny Ashley Seal, Sean McWilliams, Joe Nuttall, Ricky Corboa and Scott Pollock.
Tell you what, some list, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
if they're all first teamers, and that's gonna, it may be a scratch squad.
Sadly,
for them.
I can't speak to the quality of any of them, or even give you an idea of what any of them are like as players, because I haven't been watching League Two for years. But to take that number of players out of any squad at this level, it would hit any team hard. So
absolutely,
they're going to be up against it tomorrow. I'm sure a few of them will still be in the squad because there's always players who are injured that eventually do make it.
Yeah, if they're 75%, they might still have them on the bench if it's that desperate as a situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we will see. But if I think we're done with our negative. The bad. I think we'll go on next to the numbers. Okay, so we're going to do the numbers. And your number this week, Rich?
Is 2.
2. What does that correlate to?
2. It correlates to the number of times we won away at West Ham.
Ever. Nice.
Forever, ever.
Oh, no.
Spitting bars.
Spitting bars is lad.
I thought you were going into the main man from Huddersfield there.
Oh, no, definitely not. I wouldn't ruin our podcast with that kind of impression.
No, I'm sure.
It's bad enough already.
Maybe. Future guest.
Yeah.
But yeah, two wins at West Ham in our history. And the reason that I bring that up is I thought there was a fair bit of negativity and navel gazing after the defeat midweek.
Yeah.
And I said to you before we started recording, I wasn't entirely sure whether or not that was because we had been competing with West Ham so recently that there seemed like, an opposition that was fresh in your mind, and you can recall games like the infamous one where West Ham awarded the man of the match to their post and they won with it.
Oh, is that when we battered them and they won 1-0 with a dodgy penner?
Yeah.
And then London, that was first game at London Stadium, wasn't it?
It was, our first game there.
Yeah. That was, oh my God.
Yeah.
I still feel about that game.
There's things like that still feel quite fresh in the memory. Even though, a hell of a lot has gone on since then. It was as if from the reaction, people had expected us to go and give them more of a game.
Do like we did against Leeds, basically.
Yeah, but really it was a completely different proposition to the game against Leeds because there were an awful lot of first teamers out for West Ham.
Well, their front line cost about 100 mil.
I know. I mean, Haller on his own
was 45, wasn't he?
Yeah,
45 mil, and Yarmolenko was about 20.
Yeah,
and then Felipe Anderson around a similar.
Yeah.
So you're talking 100 mils worth. What one player cost as much as our bloody squad did. So you
could buy our club.
You could,
and account for the premium price that is being asked.
That's it. 45 million for one player.
Yeah.
In Sebastian Haller, and I know he scored, but he's obviously he's in a team where he don't quite fit as well, isn't he?
Yeah. But if
still,
you had that kind of money and you wanted to throw around at Hull City, you could even get yourself the future payments on Harry Maguire and Jared Bowen for that.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. So I agree.
I just felt there was a little bit of perspective needed. It's not necessarily something that or somewhere that's been a happy hunting ground for us over the years anyway.
No.
I think we'd only played 20 odd games there. I've forgotten the exact figure that I looked up on Tiger Base before the game, or before we started recording.
Yeah.
There's only 20 odd games that we played at West Ham, 2 victories, and people forget as well that there are now that we are separated by 2 divisions. So that there's that number again. The gulf is massive. Between the 2 teams at the moment, and that might be difficult to accept, but I don't think it's.
I don't think people like the fact that that's the case, but again, you've got to accept the harsh facts of it, which is they are 2 leagues above us, and they have just in 3 players from their front line. You could buy Hull City twice with that, and a bit more. So
much greater resources in comparison to us, and all right, I didn't enjoy us watching watching us get cuffed 5-1
No.
was not enjoyable, and to a certain degree, the game kind of played out as amongst the sort of backdrop of incredulity and.
It was the AFL bollocks that overrode it all, wasn't
exactly.
it?
So it definitely became secondary, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy watching it. I'm not saying, that I found the performance necessarily to be one where it's like there was any redeeming qualities to be picked from it. But at the same time, just a little bit of perspective as to who we were playing and the position that we are in relation to them. I don't think there was any reason for despondency, and especially not. There were some players who came in for harsh criticism, then others off the back of that defeat as well. And I just thought it was a bit too soon and maybe a little bit unwarranted.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on that are pretty much the same as yours. I do, I watched the game. We went behind. I mean, we could have gone behind within 2 minutes because Anderson fizzed a shot past the post. And I did think when Smallwood went off, I thought we're going to be in for a tough night here.
Yeah. I mean, we're always going to be anyway.
We are, yeah.
And they got about us so well. The way that they pressed us from the front, they suffocated us. Every single time we had a chance to get an attack going, we weren't allowed to play with our heads up because we had 2 or 3 West Ham players around a single one of ours. We were just firing the ball back to their defenders. It really was a long night for us without the ball. We had lads out there like Maya was knackered because he'd done so much running trying to recover position.
Well, he was playing as a second fullback basically to try and just snuff the danger out.
Yeah,
and that's what annoys me when people are then going, "Oh, well, Maya was shit," or McGuinness did. They didn't get the ball to do anything with. You can't just expect them to, against the Premier League team like that, like you said, against a side with a press that was so well drilled and instigated.
I was really impressed with that. Even as an opposition fan, I enjoyed watching that.
Yeah, because it was so well drilled. They just had us on toast every time, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, this is frustrating, but to be fair,
you had to admire
it.
Yeah. You had to admire it.
That's it, and it does question as to why most of those lads have not played in the Premier League and they haven't had good results. So maybe it was their chance to stake a claim. I don't know, but anyway,
it's completely different.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, usually you would find that even if you had your B team out, which is essentially what West Ham did, because none of them, like I said, were starting in Premier League, they would still play the same formation more often than not, wouldn't they? So, it's not like they've got a load of players that doesn't fit into the formation that he plays and they tried something different and they won 5-1. But again, they are playing against League One opposition. We've got to face that reality as well, haven't we? And we've played quite a lot of games with the cup as well. We've had midweek games every week for the last 3 weeks. So that's going to take its toll on people as well. But
of course it is.
Obviously, we don't have the Grimsby one now coming up in a couple of weeks, so maybe it's a nice rest time, and they can rearrange that for another time. But my number was 9, and it's ironic really because I think the number he wears is 7. But I would say Malik Wilks' position is definitely number 9, which is something we've kind of covered already a little bit. But I think the way he's playing to try and make that position his own is going to be a massive shame if the next few games McCann doesn't give him a run at striker. Malik Wilks.
Yeah, well, I think that was one of the reasons why McGuinness came in for such stick on Wednesday night, was that people were expecting to see Wilks through the middle, and when the game was going against us, it's almost like you want to see him played through the middle because whoever's there is not doing the job. So it's like, well, he's doing badly, but he can do this because he's done it in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And the kind of evidence-based football fan in me is thinking it's a very small sample size. A game against Leeds United, kids and reserves, and then the last half hour against Crewe. I don't necessarily want to proclaim him the answer, so all right, we'll see him through the middle at some point, but he might not be the answer against West Ham. But then bugger me, he gets played in that position again for part of the game and scores. So what do I know? The only thing I would say is we've got a little while to go in the transfer window. I don't necessarily feel comfortable announcing him as the number 9 and saying, well, we don't need any cover now.
No, I think we would still need an out-and-out striker as an option.
Yeah, and the reason why I would think that is again, like I say, it's a very small sample size. All right, he did very well for Doncaster in that role, I believe.
I don't know if he played for Leeds in that role, because originally he was at Leeds, wasn't he? But
yeah, in terms of what I've seen, I've not seen enough to think I'm comfortable going for another 44 games of the league season with him.
I'd agree with that.
And Eves.
But I would also say that I would prefer him currently in form over McGuinness or anybody else.
I agree with that. He now. If McGuinness had earned the right to start in that role after his performance against Gillingham, Wilkes has now earned the right to have the next game.
Yeah.
And I'd say the next couple in that role, 100%. At least.
Yeah. Because what we've got, Plymouth next week.
Yes.
I think. So is it?
No.
Is it not Plymouth Argyle week?
Oh, yeah, it's Plymouth Argyle and then...
So it's Northampton, then it's Plymouth.
Fleetwood away.
And then it's Fleetwood away.
Yeah.
So I think with those 3 games in mind, I'd give Wilkes, 2-3 game run and see what he could, because he's not had a bunch of time up there. It was one full game until he was brought off against Leeds. So he started that position, which he doesn't normally. And then they switched him against Crewe. He had 25 minutes up front and he scored.
Hour, wasn't it? Yeah.
And then again, he came on as a sub, didn't he, against West Ham? He didn't.
Yes.
He didn't start. He came on for McGuinness, I understand, and then he scored, to make it 3-1 and give us some kind of hope at that time. Obviously, it didn't overall, but it looked like it could have done it on another night potentially. So he's not had an awful lot of minutes up front, and he's again, like you said, he scored 3 and 3. So I think
go with the hot hand, don't you?
That's it. And I think his finishing could improve, quite a lot. But if one goes in out of 5 shots, then it's more than the other strikers are doing.
Well, I don't think his finishing's that bad relative to the standard anyway. We've seen at the moment in the opposition teams that we've played that there are strikers in this division that do not take chances with the regularity that Wilkes is showing.
I think that's probably a good point, but I think it is also one that, Wilkes at this level will be very good in that role, in my opinion. And again, it's only an opinion. Remains to be seen at the minute, doesn't it? Because he's only had a 3-game stint where he has scored. I mean, it could be that he plays tomorrow as a stinker, and what do we know? But I think with him being in the form that he is, number 9 is definitely the position he should be being played in.
Yeah,
and I think it's a big decision that McCann has to make, but I'd hope it be one that he does make, because, for all, like you said, for all Josh McGuinness played so well against Gillingham, I don't think he's done anything to earn that shirt over Wilkes in the last few games.
No, the goals would always be the overriding factor in that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, 100%. So that was my number.
The nice thing is, whoever he goes with, we've got players scoring.
That's it.
Up front, everybody who has played through the middle for City this season has scored.
That's right. Yeah. Because we forget about Keane Lewis Potter didn't play particularly well against Crewe because they did a number on him, didn't they? It wasn't that he stunk the place out; it was that actually they defended well and effectively against him.
He just didn't see any play.
No, he barely had the ball really, doubling up on him and all that sort of stuff. But there are going to be games where that happens. He was very good, wasn't he, against when he went through the middle against Leicester under-23s, for example.
Yeah, and
he was good against Gillingham as well. So it's good to have the options up there. But I wouldn't like to be McCann choosing 3 of those 5 or 6 tomorrow, because someone's going to be disappointed.
What a nice decision for him to have to make.
It's a nice change, isn't it? He was like, who the fuck do I play up front? Because no fucker scoring. Now it's like, well, everyone's in form, so I'm going to feel real tight to whoever it is that I don't drop. But maybe that makes them more determined to force their way into his plans. I don't know how the modern footballer's mind works, but having never
Much the
played
same
it.
as yours and mine, I bet.
Well, probably.
Worryingly.
Worryingly. I don't know who we'll go with tomorrow. I still wouldn't like to hazard a guess at who we'd go with, but I would hope that one of the changes he makes is Wilkes through the middle.
Mm. Yeah, I'm glad, like you, I'm glad I'm not picking that front three.
Yeah, because I mean there is some talent. We've had a good transfer window so far, haven't we?
Yeah, so far
they've gone. I do add that caveat so far.
Yeah, I do worry with so much time left, and the obvious problems that we have at the football club, that there could be something else to come. Could be something to come. We'll see. But that's just the pessimist in me.
Yeah, well, there's always something just before on the eve of something. Just like the Radio Humberside thing happened before the eve of the season started. There's
Exactly.
always something that drops, isn't there?
Yeah, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself.
No, that's right. It is City after all, so what more can we expect? So I think that was everything we wanted to talk about this week, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
So
nothing else burning within me.
Nothing, no other burning issues. So obviously, Northampton away tomorrow, and good luck to the boys. And I'm sure we'll all be watching either at home with our cables attached to our laptops or whatever we're going to be doing. I've
made the decision tomorrow. Like the last few games, I've kind of watched the game and also been on social media at the same time.
Are you not doing that now?
No, I'm going to delete Twitter off my phone while the game's being played. I haven't found it to be a healthy outlet for the frustrations of watching football, like during the game. So
it is very easy, I think, to switch onto the app and then just read a load of stuff that you either agree with too much or don't agree with at all, and get riled up either way.
Yeah. It doesn't. There are certain situations where it doesn't bring out the best in people, and sometimes I'm prone to that as well. So I'm going to be taking off my phone. I think just enjoy the game tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that might be a nice bet to do, because it may as well, if you don't have that distraction of the phone there, it may make you not. I'm not accusing you of doing this, but I think people sometimes, if they see it on social media, even if they haven't seen it with their own eyes, it's something that registers with you internally, and you think, oh yeah, that happened, when actually it might be somebody's own interpretation you don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I do.
I think the big example is I think over the last game, which was obviously West Ham, I think two players that copped for it was McGuinness and Long. And I think that's unfair. But once you see one City fan tweet about how awful somebody is up front, or how somebody is in goal, or somebody had done better, I think it starts on the negative too much. And I think you end up either getting riled up, or you end up thinking negatively about a player where they may not necessarily be in a game, and it's not their fault. Do you know what I mean?
But either way, you feed into it, and
either way, it's a negative, isn't it? So
yeah.
I think maybe just offload the app, innit?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Between 3 and 6, when we finish the game, and if we win, which I would be hopeful tomorrow that we would get a positive result, then maybe things are a little bit more rosy down there. But we shall see. So, obviously, until next time, thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to everybody for listening. Just a quick note before we go, Rich. There is a couple of new additions on our through my anchor stats
on the World Tour.
On the World Tour, so added to our World Tour dates 2020. I'm just getting them up right now. There we go. So obviously, United Kingdom is where most of our listeners are, but the two that have appeared very recently. Actually, oh no, there's a third one. Scratch that. There's a third just appeared on there. So we've got Canada. Now we have listeners in Canada.
I thought we did before anyway.
I don't think I'd mentioned that one before, but Canada certainly has gone up in the percentages. So we've got some loyal listeners there. Turkey.
Eric Lehigh. It's definitely Eric Lehigh.
Must be Eric Lehigh. I want to think it is him. That would be Min. Let us know, Eric, if you are listening. And Last one. Do you want to guess? Do you want me to read the full countries out so you can see where our things are and you can deduce where?
No, I'm just going to guess.
Go on, go.
Chad.
Amazing. I'd never expected you to go with that. Just the preppy guy in an American film who's on the American football or lacrosse team, Chad. No, it's not. It's New Zealand. New Zealand. Some listeners from New Zealand, from Canterbury in New Zealand. My data says so. Hello to you guys. That's nice.
New Zealand Tigers.
New Zealand Tigers. Love that. So, thank you to all our listeners, wherever they are in the world, and we will speak to you next week.
Give us a shout. Give us a tweet. Tell us where you're listening from.
If right, hang on. Just to finish. If you are in the following countries, because this is something where I actually love this because I never realised the data would do this to the extent that it does. But obviously, with the UK, we're always going to expect the majority of the listeners are in this country. But if you are in the United States, Australia, Norway, Ireland, Belgium, Denmark, Romania, Brazil, Italy, Germany, Austria, and then Canada, Turkey, or New Zealand, please give us a shout on social media so we can thank you personally with your name. Because it's good to put names to countries that I've got in my data.
If you're the Irish Tigers and you also own that flag that I've seen at the KC, Wexford Tigers, especially give us a shout because I've got family in Wexford, so I'll be very pleased to hear from you. There we go.
Thanks to all the listeners around the world, and then we'll speak to you next week.
We will, hopefully another positive game to look forward to.
Fingers crossed. Forza Tigers.
Forza.
See you next week.
See ya.